Good now, Mr.
All
Howard.
right. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Um, This is a fairly short lesson, but I believe that we could all sum it up in Matthew 22:36 through 40. I'll read that. Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
That's right.
Title of today's lesson is Compassion Demonstrated. The key doctrine is stewardship. God is the source of all blessings, temporal and spiritual. All that we have and are, we owe to Him.
Mhm.
Understanding the contents, I'm going to skip around a little bit. To experience the blessings of constant renewal, Solomon's son would need to make wisdom his constant priority. Read yourself for Solomon's son. An unwavering commitment to God's wisdom would provide you with a constant supply of fulfilling days. If you follow His way and His word, as it says in our study, you can lay your head down at night and be restful and not think about things that you should not have done or whatever. Solomon emphasized godly wisdom's importance by calling attention to how God created the world by His wisdom. God's wisdom guided him as He put the created order into motion. Everything in the created order works together in unique harmony. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, the very littlest thing. Some of you know that I'm like planetary. I'm a landscape architect before I became a lawyer. Oak trees have an amoeba that lives in the soil, a nematode, that helps break down nutrients for the tree. Now, if you were to say, okay, I'm going to build an oak tree, would you have thought of that? God did.
That's right.
It's amazing. If you look around the various things that happen, they are all created by God. Sometimes we attribute bad things, hurricanes, tornadoes, such as that. So maybe God's angry. That's just nature. That's what happens. And we have to deal with it. We learn to deal with adversity if we rely on God.
That's right.
If God's people lived by the same wisdom, their lives would be just as splendid. We demonstrated that we live according to God's wisdom by the way we treat people. Godly wisdom steers us away from meanness and violence and directs us to kindness and humility. We have experienced in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks in this country a breakdown of society. Some of our governing leaders have kowtowed to the mob and given them authority and strength. We don't have to like what they are doing, but we have to realize that they too are God's children. And the thing to do is to extend the hand of peace. Hopefully, this too shall pass. We'll get by this without any real damage to our country or nation. Here in Horry County, at the beach, we have young men coming down from North Carolina with weapons. Uh, Rival gangs shoot across the street at each other. And that's affecting whatever economy we have. Our economy relies on tourism. And when people read in the news, let's say in Alabama, not Alabama, Kentucky, and want to come to the beach, they may not come to Myrtle Beach. They may go to Wrightsville Beach. We have to learn to deal with this in a godly manner. Verses, this is Proverbs 3:21-26. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. Them, I had it in my mind, I don't believe it's the evildoers. I think it's the Proverbs and such that he's teaching his son. So shall they be life unto thy soul, grace to thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. One problem I have at night is I can't turn my mind off. I would love to be able to do that. Maybe that's because I don't pray hard enough for relief of that. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. And we are in the age where the desolation of the wicked is upon us. Solomon taught his son to give his attention to the twin treasures of wisdom and discretion. Wisdom would give him useful insight about God's way to live. Discretion would nourish good sense and sound judgment. For his son to benefit from these two treasures, he must never let them depart from his eyes. He has to keep those in the forefront of his mind, wisdom and discretion. And we know that wisdom doesn't come to young men. It comes with time. It comes with experience. And you have so much to look forward to. You have so many stumbling blocks that you're going to have to deal with. But that's all a part of growing up. When we follow God's wisdom and discretion, we enjoy a life that's enriched by loving Him and loving others. As a result, these two treasures grace our lives like a beautiful necklace adorns a person's neck, visible for all to see. We do need to demonstrate discretion and love. People see that. Most won't understand it, but they will see it in you, and they think about what you have. How are you coping with this so well?
That's right.
I'm a child of God, as April says, and Christ is my Savior. God's wisdom and discretion keep us from stumbling through the journey of life. When we walk with Him and gain His perspective on the challenges we face, we walk confidently. Our trust in Him makes us certain He will lead us safely through the challenges. We tend to stumble in the journey when we lose sight of God's wisdom and discretion. That wide way beckons, and we're hopefully all on the narrow way. But over here, it's all fun and games. You know, we have to keep our eye on the prize. Too often, fear lies beneath anxiety. we're afraid of what's already happened, what's happening now, or what's about to happen next. Solomon's instruction to his son urges us to live by faith, not by fear. We have to trust in God, who allows us to lie down with peace instead of fret. The wicked people reject the Lord, and their rejection of him placed his wisdom out of their reach, but they didn't care. They determined they would follow their own path. Wise people, however, could see that such a foolish path would lead to ruin. I am fortunate that in my family, we haven't had some of the things that some families have, where youngsters run away and become involved in the underbelly of civilization, drugs and prostitution and all sorts of things that raise the hair on your neck. And I don't know if that's anything I did, but I believe it's something that God did. And I'm so thankful for that. God's people have been warned about the judgment coming to wicked individuals. These wicked people, they didn't care. They determined that they would follow their own path. Wise people, however, see that such foolish paths would lead to ruin. Following God's wisdom would render a sense of peace. And we'll see later on that God has rejected these people. And that's because they use a term in here, froward. And what that means is people who have rejected the Lord and God. They've rejected the narrow path and are on the wide path. When we seek to apply wisdom that comes from the Lord, we can enjoy the sweet blessings of a wholesome life, a sense of safety, the absence of anxiety, the removal of fear. As we walk with Him and trust Him to guide us, we will grow more aware of the reality that these blessings come from. Our confidence in Him emanates from the awareness that nothing matters more than His presence. How many, when you stumble or looking for your glasses, thank the Lord when you find them? Paula and I joke with each other that we put things away safely so that we can keep them. And then, of course, we promptly forget where we put them, and we have to search the house for them. But in the end, we find that through God's grace. We can face the challenges in our lives confidently as long as we know that He's with us. He will keep us safe from harm, but the path of foolish people will be full of snares. He'll prevent us from being trapped in them by guiding us with His wisdom and discretion. Proverbs 27:28. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. Say not unto thy neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I will give, when thou hast it by thee. The text says that this has got to do with somebody who's hired somebody to do something and at a set price, and then when the job is done, doesn't want to pay them right away. But I think there's a deeper meaning. Withhold not good from them who it is due. We all have people in our lives that are good examples and good teachers, and they so often do not hear our appreciation. And it's just a simple thing to say, you know, Laurie, thank you for all the help you've been to the church. Let's see here. Solomon gave 4 snapshots of daily life in the verses 27 through 30. Each snapshot provides clear insight into the way the Lord expects his people to treat others around them. Taken together, the pictures send an unmistakable message that he intends for us to treat people with kindness. The first picture is of people who work for us. We talked about that. When somebody does a job, pay them. Simple as that. Second picture involved a neighbor. It could be a neighbor who needed to be paid for a job completed, or a neighbor who simply had a need. Families in Solomon's time didn't have the blessings that we have. And there's a lot of nations in the world today that don't have blessings we have. People can't understand that you can go into Food Lion and there's row after row after row with food from all over the place, and it's fresh. You don't have to go out and scrape for food. You don't have to glean the wheat fields for wheat to grind into bread. You don't have to carry water from a well. These things are happening today, but in that time, it was normal. God's people would never be guilty of such a heartless action. I'm talking about, nice job you did for me, come tomorrow and I'll have your check. They would follow his direction and treat their neighbors with kindness and respect by being prompt with payment. They knew that God would hold them accountable if they mistreated their neighbors by being inconsiderate. There's a block here that talks about bad neighbor, good neighbor. And all I see is a bunch of bad neighbors. A bad neighbor betrays their neighbor's trust. Bad neighbors say bad things about their neighbors. They gossip. Bad neighbors try to entice their neighbors into sin. Bob, let's come to my house and we'll sit around and drink beer and watch TV instead of going to church. Bad neighbors are inconsiderate of their neighbors. Drive their vehicles through their lawn to get to their place, anything. Bad neighbors lie to their neighbors. And bad neighbors are loud and obnoxious neighbors. I think we've all experienced some of those. It's not a comfortable thing, but we can get through it. The third snapshot also includes a neighbor. We can appreciate this picture because it depicts a community in which neighbors help one another. In this picture, a person who lives in the community has come to trust the neighbor next door. Unfortunately, he or she doesn't know about the plan for meanness that the neighbor next door has in mind. The person next door actually wants to bring harm to the unsuspecting and trusting neighbor. Cruel schemes have not been provoked by anything wrong and the trusting neighbor has done. The plan to bring harm comes merely from an eagerness to do something evil. Of course, godly people do not give in to the notion that they can mistreat their neighbor. They refuse to live like hypocrites who pretend to care for their neighbors and then carry out schemes to hurt them. Because we trust the Lord, we show it by being kind to people around us. We express his kindness by honoring the trust that they have placed in us. Verses 29 and 30. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. Strive not with a man without cause, if he had done thee no wrong, no harm. Don't get into a argument over nothing. Don't cause a lot of turmoil. If you've been wrong, pray about it. Try to find a solution that reflects God's plan for you and your neighbor. The fourth picture brings to mind two appalling episodes taken from the Old Testament. Ahab, the king of Israel, wanted Naboth's vineyard, but he couldn't get it. We know the story. Jezebel had Naboth killed by the elders and then gave the vineyard to her husband, Ahab. Generations later, a member of Israel's royal court named Haman wanted to murder a good man named Mordecai. Mordecai was, what was her name? Esther, thank you. Esther's uncle or cousin. Haman concocted an evil plot that would have him executed. The vile efforts made by Jezebel and Haman provide us with an important insight. They show how selfish individuals can accuse innocent people of crimes they have not committed. For that reason, they remind God's people to refuse to bring malicious accusations against someone who has done no harm to them. We experienced that recently. We went through 3 years of false accusations. People did not want our president to be our president. So they made up stories. They concocted events. In the end, it came to light that these were false accusations. And even today, they reference them when they're talking about our president. I believe our president handled that with grace and with humility. He did get on the tweet and get back to them, but I don't think he caused anybody to lose a job or anything like that. Notice that these 4 pictures involve neighbors. When we think about neighbors, we tend to have in mind people we know. But putting the focus on neighbors doesn't allow us to draw the conclusion that we have permission to mistreat strangers. Jesus defined neighbor in Luke 10:25-37. God intends for his people to be kind to everyone as an expression of our trust in him. We have homeless in our community. We have people who go to bed hungry. We have children who go to bed hungry. I think a lot of that is because we have a lot of single parents, and those single parents, a lot of them don't work. They rely on the kindness of others and government. One thing that we can do is we can help them in their times of need, and we can try to bring them to the right path, try to get them some kind of self-respect and employment. Blessings secured. Verses 31-32. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the froward is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. As I said, froward are those who turn away from what is right, turn away from God. God's people must not give in to the temptation to be like an oppressor, to be like their neighbor who has everything and got it through shady means. Choosing instead to follow God's wisdom, they would choose to ignore the example he set with his evil ways. The violent man whom Solomon warned his son to avoid belongs to a group of froward individuals. All of them had the same character traits. They were wicked and vicious people who enjoyed doing whatever they wanted, even if it brought pain and suffering to others. A psalmist by the name of Asaph wrote about his frustrations with them. He noticed that they didn't seem to be held accountable for their behavior. However, his perspective changed when he went to the temple. There he could see them through the eyes of the Lord. From God's perspective, they were an abomination. Their repulsive lifestyles disgusted him, being God. On the other hand, the Lord looked upon a righteous person in a different way altogether. He considered an upright person to be his friend. His friend had a relationship with him. As they walked with the Lord, he would give them his counsel. Verse 33, the curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. How would the Lord deal with the detestable individuals? The curse of the Lord was on them. He would make sure that they were held accountable for their evil actions. He considered them to be wicked. For that reason, they wouldn't enjoy their treasures for long. Their house would fall down around them, and they would be left to suffer the consequences of their criminal behavior. Everyone would see the foolish path they had chosen for themselves and would lead to their destruction. We had that a few years back. A financier, I forget his name, did a Ponzi scheme, and he got millions of dollars, and then it crashed down on him, and he's now in prison. We had another one recently where the individual committed suicide rather than facing the consequences of his evil. In sharp contrast, God's people would enjoy the benefits of his blessing. The habitation of the just would exhibit the superlative value of having a personal relationship with God. The Lord's friends would be eager to do what's right and would be known for their godliness, their goodness. So, right there, we each individually have to develop our own relationship with God and our Lord. And we do that through prayer. Verses 34 and 35. Surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of the fools. Not only does God curse wicked people, he also mocks them. With their behavior, they make a mockery of him and his ways. They laugh at his commands. They sneer at his calls to repent. They treat his compassionate appeals to them with contempt. They will find themselves living out God's curse on them because of the lifestyles they have embraced. Their pride will definitely result in their fall. Down in Florida, Coconut Grove, or they've got a strip down there where they have the nightclubs and all that, and a lot of degenerate people down there. Same thing, I don't know if any of you have been to Key West. Paula and I went there a number of years back, and we drove around and said, we couldn't stay there. It was ungodly, the people doing what they were doing. Lowly or humble believers can expect a completely different response. Instead of turning a deaf ear to us, we can be confident that God takes care of us. His lavish kindness to us is the result of the grace he extends to us. Instead of being prideful, we embrace the reality that we are nothing without him. Our humility in our walk with him opens the door for His grace to work in us. God's grace to the humble puts them on the path of glory. The Lord will make sure that His people inherit a place of honor because they have chosen to be wise. Of course, being wise means trusting the Lord to give us His wisdom so we can apply it in our lives. A lot of times Paul will make a decision and he'll act on it, and in retrospect, I think I should have asked the Lord what I should have done. Living with honor means enjoying the blessings that come from having an honorable reputation. It also suggests the contentment that comes from God's smile on us as we grow in our walk with Him. Living with honor, that's something to be, again, it's something that you have to honor. Honor doesn't come, respect doesn't come just because you are who you are. You have to demonstrate to others and to the world that you have the traits of being an honorable and trustworthy person. As I said, this is a short lesson. I don't know what the time is. Pardon? Oh, I'm told I'm right on time. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Well, I thank you for your attendance, and we will be relieved until the service.
Good job.